My name is Roberta. I'm a new iOS developer. I've been learning how to code using online courses. And before that, I used to do localization engineering. And localization is basically where you take software and websites and video games and you make them multilingual. So by default, this is a very diverse kind of job. You work with people from all over the world, people from all sorts of backgrounds, because there's no education that you follow, so it's not like everybody has the same background. Until I started working in the game industry, which was like a bit of a shock. It started as like pretty much a dream job. I started working on the games that I really loved myself. And then after we got our first baby and I got back to work 4 months later, everything was just super rushed. It was very, very stressful. But also like just the whole culture was very, very hostile in the sense that like I was working really insane hours. Our daughter had like 2 operations in a really short life in 3 years. And basically I was told that I wasn't doing enough. And at some point I was like, well, this is like okay, what else can I do, right? So I got so frustrated, like I decided to leave. And they actually laid me off. So I was like, oh my God, this is like perfect timing. And I took some time to think, okay, what am I going to do? And I started to learn how to code. And because I'd always been dabbling in programming, and I felt like, well, this time I really want to learn how to do it properly. And basically that's my starting point, why I'm here right now. Because as I was learning, I felt there was something missing. There were a lot of initiatives to get people interested in coding. A lot of initiatives for children, for women, but nothing like for people who had already started and wanted to kind of level up to become professional. So this is basically where I started to think about this project of mine, and I started I was a part of an incubator for social enterprise at Esplanade, and so I really focused on, okay, how can I do this? How can I build a skills incubator for people who do online learning? And what's the structure? What are the problems we need to solve and that sort of stuff? So these are my notes from like, actually a year ago, pretty much a year ago. There are a lot of research out there that kind of makes the link between diversity and the skills gap in tech. So skills gap being there's not enough people to fill all the jobs that we need to have filled. And actually the skills gap is growing every year, bigger and bigger. There's not enough students coming out of the schools. There's not enough students coming out of schools who can fill the jobs that are needed. And so every year this gap is getting bigger and bigger, while at the same time, the diversity gap was getting worse at the same time. So it's like you had a lot of people dropping out, and there was more need for people. So there's a lot of research that backs all this up. There's an organization called ICTC, the ICT Council. They do a lot of, they come out with a report every 5 years. They come out with other reports as well. But this particular report was very, very interesting. So what you can see is the skills gap in Montreal is more than 35,000 jobs that need to be filled over the next 5 years, basically. That's a lot of jobs, and there's not enough students coming out right now. The trends are like Internet of Things is like a big thing that's coming up. There's a lot of demand for that. Anything with social, mobile, analytics, data science, a lot of like demand for those new skills. Gender imbalance, only 25% of women work in tech as, having a tech job rather than like HR, for example, more like the traditional jobs. So the supply of skills is going down. The workforce is aging. Less and less people are interested in pursuing a career in tech. Global talent is interesting because we still have a third of immigrants working in tech, but at the same time, they get told that, oh, you're lacking experience in Canadian on the Canadian market. So that gives them either less access to interesting jobs, or it's sort of a way of having them underpaid. Like, it's an excuse, like, you need more experience, so we'll pay you less, so you will build up the skills. So this is a big problem. What are the skills that people need? So there's this growing demand for actual tech skills, but at the same time there's what they call the business skills, which are critical thinking, communication between, with team members. Like, it's a very social kind of job. People think often it's like me and my computer, but you have to work as part of a team. Self-management, ability to learn. Those are the kind of skills that are on demand by potential employers. So that's sort of the landscape right now. On the other side, you have what they call the roadmap for the future. And this is where I thought, like, oh, this is really interesting. Because these were exactly the things that I was thinking of. For example, here, engage all available talent, fill the skills gap by bridging the diversity gap. If you have a lot of people dropping out because they're not engaged, you really need, that's the first thing you need to do. Like, make sure that people stay, that they don't leave, or that they're not kicked out of the company. And then the other one is creation of innovation centers or talent incubators. So basically what they say, how they see this is you bring together employers and job seekers in a situation where they can collaborate together, like working together. Basically, potential employers could work with job seekers by teaching a particular skill or something like that, or having events and working in hackathons and stuff like that. Very important, they hammer a lot on hands-on experience and formal, informal training. So formal is really like you sit in a classroom, but also informal, like learning from other people around you. And we focus a lot on project-based learning ourselves. Web-based training, there's a lot of courses online right now that are almost free, or free actually. And then using internships not as a way of getting cheap labor, we're actually using it as a way of training people. And basically, those are the things that were very, very interesting. And this is where we wanted to focus on. So we started out as a meetup group, just meeting several times a week. We started at the Anti-Café, which had just opened. I don't know if you know where it is, but it's like just a place where you can get free coffee, unlimited coffee for like $5, something like that. And you just hang out there. And we had, like, at the beginning, we had the whole place to ourselves. There was nobody who discovered it yet. And we started growing. And in February, I'm gonna skid ahead a little bit. So basically, the way it is right now, Les Pitonneux, as a skills incubator, we try to bring together online learning, using courses that already exist online, and add community to the mix. So community helping people out, peer-to-peer, project-based learning. And it turns out that this has a better chance of success than either having just online courses on your own, or actual instruction like going to a boot camp. So we sort of position ourselves as an anti-boot camp in the sense that we don't charge as much as a boot camp would. A lot of our initiatives are free. And also, but we still want to have that same level of, like, at the end of this, you should be able to get a job. So, at Les Pitonneux, there's kind of 3 levels of engagement. So we have our coffee and codes, which are like 4 to 5 times a week. You just show up and show people what your project is, or start working on your project with other people. If you need help, this is often where you get some help. And we also have a Slack group outside of those meetings. On our meetup group right now, we have about 800 people. And on Slack, I would say 250. But at our meetings, we usually have like 10 to 15 people, something like that. Then the second level of engagement is the learning circles. And this is what I'll talk about because we've been iterating a bit over what works well and what does not work so well. So this is where the rest of the talk is going to go after I just talk about the third level engagement, which is when you get ready for a job. Basically, either you find a job, like Kira found a job. She was one of the first to kind of to get a job and start working professionally. But we also have a lot of people who just want to start working with clients. We have a lot of entrepreneurs coming our way and say, hey, I'm looking for a developer. I have an idea. Can you help me with my MVP? And so we've been just doing a lot of matchmaking, which is like pretty hard. And so to kind of formalize it in a different way. So we have been like working with clients and getting paid and things like that. But we're now setting up a co-op of developers. We're about 13 people right now, of wide variety of skills, but also level of skills, so that we can basically do this a lot bit better. So we can have customers come in and say, I need this work done. And then we can also use it as a way for people to get their first work experience, build up proper internships where people get proper guidance from a senior developer and things. And they work actually on a project that's going to live in the real world, basically. So that's the third level of actually, starting from, okay, I'm just learning, up to the point where, yeah, I'm ready to get my first job. Now going back to the learning circles. We started in February to do study jams for people. This was like a volunteer-led initiative. We got funding from Google to do this. Basically, Google had developed a course online with Udacity, and they noticed that people weren't really sticking with it. So they felt like, well, if you add community to it, blended learning, maybe people will stick to, will actually finish the program. So it's a beginner's program for people learning to code for Android. And a lot of people liked it. I think there was still a lot to be desired. Like, for example, the fact that it was volunteering was very difficult because at some point, I call it volunteering fatigue. People are busy. People just have no more time. People lose engagement, and you can't ask people to be available every week for 3 months. It's a very difficult thing to ask for, and so that made it not very sustainable. The other thing was like finding the place all the time, like having to find a place that was available for that much time. So we got sponsorship from WeWork. So this is our group at WeWork. We got funded by Google, but got sponsorship from WeWork for about 3 months or something like that. Another problem was that it was not self-paced. So there were like 5 sessions, and so there was a suggested pace, like at each week you should be at a certain point in the course. And that was very difficult to maintain. Some people like rushed through it, but if you had a kid, you had a job, like it was really difficult to put that amount of time in every week. So it was very frustrating for people. They already felt that after the first week that they were behind. So wasn't really part of our values too, because we wanted to support people who did not have as much time, but still wanted to move forward. Then we started doing learning circles on a month-by-month basis. I didn't have a picture of the group, so we did this for Android and iOS. And so what we did, like instead of volunteering, people would actually pay on a monthly basis. And it would be sort of a hop-on, hop-off kind of thing. So if you needed 2 months, you would pay for 2 months. If you needed 3 months or just 1 month, you would just keep going until you said, okay, now I'm done. What we noticed there, that everybody who had a project, they stuck with it. So they were really motivated to keep going. It would help them with their learning, like they knew exactly where they were going next. And if they didn't, we could help them out. But anybody who did not have a project did not really have anything to bring into the circle. And the thing with learning circles, like you share your experience. It's not like somebody stands in front of a class and tells you what you need to learn. Like you bring in your learning to the circle. Everybody's going to learn from you. We're going to have guests and things like that. So we did have guests. And it basically turned into ad hoc workshops. Like somebody would ask a question, and that would kind of set the tone for the learning circle. So that was not our intent, and also the fact that there was like no boundaries. It was like, it's not like, okay, we're done at this point, or there was no hard deadlines, meant that it was not, it wasn't very valuable for people. So the next step, basically, what we're coming up with now, we're launching this on the 22nd of October. It's our 12-week skills incubator program. This picture is actually a bit of a joke because it's not an actual computer lab, because it's actually going to be more like this. This is a 12-week program for people who want to learn either iOS, Android, front-end, back-end, data science, machine learning. Basically, we want to be able to support everybody's learning and group people by whatever they're learning. And we want people to work on a team, which means that there's never going to be a situation where you're not on a project. You're also going to be working with a team. So if you don't have anything to do that week, or you haven't done anything that week, your team is going to be the ones that are going to, you know, like, hey, what's happening, you know? They're going to help you pick it back up. At the same time, apart from the team, you also have the learning circle, which is basically whatever the theme of what you're learning. So if you're doing front end, you'd be with a group with people for front end. And so this is where you share insights, you share best practices. Also, everybody is going to be using agile methodologies on the project, because that's very important. Like the whole idea of the learning circle is also it's self-organizing. So we have to use methodologies that help people self-organize. So pretty much the first day is on a Saturday, the 22nd, and we're going to, people are going to propose their projects. They're going to form teams around these projects, and basically everybody's going to come up with something and say, okay, I'm looking for these kinds of developers. And as soon as people form, as soon as you have more than 2 people, that could be a team. And then we do a few hours of design sprint. And design sprint is very, very interesting. We've been doing them since about 2 years now, I think. Because we got early access through Google to from Google Ventures to their design sprint idea. So we started using it, and so it's very, very interesting. It's like it brings the ideas that come up are ideas that wouldn't have come up otherwise. So so yeah, and so then they keep going. They meet every once a week, but in the meantime, they'll have to work on a project with a team. They'll be using actual skills that they will need on the job. We'll have guests if they need, like if somebody says, okay, I need somebody with these kind of skills, or I need this type of hardware, we're going to help them find that. And yeah, that's basically what the Lab 12 program is about. It will be actually kind of fun to be able to come back in when is it, in February, after we've done, and come like, what went wrong, what went right, how could we improve? So one last word about volunteering for diversity. There's a lot of people who volunteer for diversity issues, like they help ladies learning code. A lot of people put their time on helping increase inclusion in tech. And the thing is that most of these volunteers are people who themselves are underrepresented in tech, and also people who are underpaid in tech. And it would be actually kind of fun if companies would see that it's to their benefit, and not just like, oh, it would be fun to have more diversity in my team, but actually they stand to profit financially as well from having diverse teams. It's shown that diverse teams are a lot more creative. Also, if you have the more women you have on your board of directors, the more success your business will have, actually. That's just statistically the case. And so it would be, yeah, I really see that now you have a lot more initiatives that are being funded now by like Google and Shopify. It was in the news earlier this week. So that's really like, I'd really like to see that a lot more, and actually pay these people and yeah, pay them for their time, because it's not just give back to the community, it's actually we're giving back to the companies as well. So yeah.